Good morning, Jeremy. I am confused about my wife's own and spousal Social Security benefits. Here's my scenario. Welcome to Retirement Revealed. I'm your host, Jeremy Keil, and we're here to turn your retirement savings into retirement income. Today, we're talking about how to maximize spousal and survivor Social Security. And today's question comes from a listener to the podcast who has a question about the spousal and survivor Social Security. Actually, they just asked about spousal, but I think survivor is a big part of Social Security, which is why I want to bring that part into it. They might not have been thinking about that. And of course, you might be thinking, how do I ask Jeremy a question? The answer is go to retirement-revealed.com. Top right-hand corner, you'll see Ask Jeremy a Question. Love to hear from you. Love to get your question, whether you're coming here from the podcast on your phone or the YouTube. So let's read the question. I'll be 59 this year. My wife is 7 years younger. She mostly stayed at home with the kids. My current thinking is that I take Social Security at full retirement age, 67. She takes her Social Security at 62. Then at 67, I think she could switch and take her spousal benefit and receive more money than her own benefit at 62. Her total new amount would be half of mine. Does that make any sense? Thank you. So this is a great question. Good to be playing this out several years ahead of time. And I'm going to go through here a few different things. This is a quite common type of question, and he is putting together kind of a lot of, not hearsay, but just bits of Social Security knowledge. It sounds as if he's talking about the idea of file restrict, where somebody files for Social Security but restricts it to a lower amount. That is done for. That went away 8 years ago. It hasn't been around for quite some time. So if you've got some thought, and I, more than 8 years ago, was telling people, keep an eye out. Let's do file restrict down the road. You can't do file restrict anymore. And even then, when you could have, the idea is that you had filed and you restricted your own benefit down to the spousal amount, and then later on you go to your own benefit, which is the opposite of what he's asking there, where he thinks that maybe you could start with her own benefit and switch over to a spousal amount. And then two, it's only was available if you filed for the first time at age 67, or at that time would have been 66, whatever age was your full retirement age, or later. So on the right track with ideas, let's figure out the most out of it. But if you've heard of file restrict, that's just done where you can't do file restrict anymore. What happens here is something called deemed filing, because he's rightly pointing out that his spouse, his wife, has a lower Social Security benefit, and seems as if she can get a higher amount as a spouse. So his hope then is when she turns 62, she can choose to get the lower one, let the higher one keep on growing. And that's just not available. The file restrict is not available. What they do is something called deemed filing, which says you're going to be filed basically for all the benefits you could get. So when she goes at 62, if he has already filed, he might have already filed there. He's planning on it at 67. She's 7 years younger. So when she files at 62, he's already filed, which means she's eligible to get the spousal amount. And he's saying that her spousal amount is going to be more than her own. And so when she files and says, I want my own benefit, they're going to look at her benefit. They're going to look at the spousal amount. Whichever one's higher, they're going to give her that higher amount. So she'll be getting the spousal amount right away based on what he's talking about there. And then, of course, he does mention her new amount would be half of mine, right? I'll get half of my benefit as the spousal, which is that's what you think, right? That's what spousal benefits are. It's half of whatever the retirement worker is getting. And you just got to get rid of that thought of half of his, right? Half of the other ones. Think of it in terms of half of the promise, right? So yes, she has promised half of his benefit, half of his full retirement age benefit at 67, whatever that amount is. She's promised half of that at her age of 67, at her full retirement age. If she takes her own early, she also will get a pay cut. Doesn't matter if it's your own benefit or if it's a spousal benefit, you get a pay cut. And if we're talking here age 67 down to the lowest of 62, that is a 30% pay cut. So let me just give some numbers here to illustrate. So let's just say that his promised amount was $3,000 and her own promised amount is $800. Seems like there's that much of a discrepancy. So her promised amount is half of his at $3,000. That's half becomes $1,500. Yeah, $1,500 is more than $800. That's how much she could get at her full retirement age there of 67. So the amount that she could get at 67 is $1,500. If she takes it early, all the way at 62, that's still got a pay cut, 30% pay cut. That would be $1,050. Of course, if she were to get her own, and she wouldn't, but if she were to get her own, that $800 promise also gets a 30% lower pay cut. So 30% lower, $240 lower, gets her $560. Obviously, she would get and would want to get the spousal amount, which you take early at $1,050. Now, I can imagine the reason why he's filing for Social Security, he's planning to file for Social Security at 67, is because he wants his full retirement amount. And I just absolutely hate the word full when it comes to Social Security. Because you hear full, you think that's the most, right? That's full. You've got all you can. No, full, when it comes to retirement with Social Security, they should really just change the name, change it to normal. It's your normal retirement age of 67. If you want the full amount, the most you can get, you've got to wait till 70. In his case, if I'm giving these example amounts, $3,000, 8% more per year, that's $240 more per year, 24% higher at age 70 then would give $3,720. And I'd really encourage them to consider waiting all the way to the end. Of course, you never want to make a Social Security decision without learning your longevity, your probabilities of making it to certain ages. So the first step is always go to longevityillustrator.org. But here is someone who's trying to max out his wife's spousal benefit. And I think you're focused on the wrong benefit. When you've got a really high benefit and if you got a lower benefit, it's the highest benefit that lasts longer because it's the highest benefit that sticks around with the widow, with the surviving spouse. The spousal benefit, no matter what it is, even if it's $1 lower than the person that has the higher benefit, that dollar amount from Social Security, that lower amount, goes away when the first person dies. So in their case, there's a big discrepancy. So you got this small dollar amount that doesn't last as long, and they're trying to figure out, how do I make the small dollar amount bigger? You ought to focus on how to make the big dollar amount that lasts longer bigger. 8% on this bigger number is a bigger number, and it lasts longer. And the reason why you really want to focus on that, not only will it help the two of you, but it will also help the surviving spouse. And I think when it comes to Social Security, follow the official name of Social Security and try to max out what you can get from it, which is old age survivor disability insurance. Social Security is there in case you live at old age. Social Security is there in case you have a survivor or become a survivor. Social Security is there as insurance in case those things happen, right? You live a long time and you become widowed. And the way to max out how you get the most out of that for their situation, which is somewhat common, where I see someone have a large discrepancy, is you want to take the higher benefit and you max that out as best you can by waiting as long as you can. So it's a great question. I'm glad that you are working it out and you're seeing that your spouse is 7 years younger. So I would encourage you to stop focusing on maxing out the smaller benefit. That's not going to help you out too much in the long run. Focus on maxing out the higher benefit in the long run. And the first step is always to go to longevityillustrator.org. And when you do that, you are likely to see here's your length of average retirement. Here's the spouse's length of average retirement, which being female and 7 years younger, she's probably going to outlive you. But of course, you can plug in what your own health situation is on there and figure that out. But it's not your own specific one-to-one longevity, life expectancy that matters. What matters is the probability that one of you might be around. When you're going to longevityillustrator.org, look at the section there that says either, and chances are pretty good. You might be thinking, well, how long does he have to live for his waiting to 70 to break even? Tell you what, it doesn't matter how long he lives. What matters is how long either one of them is alive. Statistically, it's probably her, being the younger female, but look at the chances of what are either you likely to be. Chances are pretty good. If they're in average health, it's going to be 90% plus chance that it was worthwhile for him to wait till 70. But going to longevityillustrator.org is the way to do that. So we've talked through where a lot of times you're trying to get the best out of your Social Security, but you got to focus on what gives you the best bang for your buck. And it's going to be the higher benefit. The higher benefit, especially if it's the older person, getting the most out of that is going to be a big helpful thing. And focusing on the spousal benefit. Spousal benefit means that your own benefit is less than half of the other person's. Focusing on that smaller benefit is not going to really help you out in the long run. So focus on the bigger benefit, focus on the benefit that helps you longer, and especially focus on what's going to help out to that surviving spouse. I haven't met a widow yet that wishes they had less money, and I think you're going to do good things at the beginning of retirement to plan out how you might be able to help out the surviving spouse at the end of retirement. Of course, if you'd like to go to ask me more questions, go to retirement-revealed.com, or if you're watching on the Mr. Retirement YouTube channel, go ahead, ask those questions in the comments. Make sure to subscribe so you can get the latest podcast through Retirement Revealed and Mr. Retirement YouTube. Thank you for listening to the Retirement Revealed podcast. We believe if you know more about your money, you will feel better about your money and you will make better money decisions. Hi, I'm Jeremy Keil, owner of Keil Financial Partners. And if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes, make sure to go to keilfp.com. That's KEILFP.com.